Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Lily Brown. I'm the director of the Center for the Treatment and Study of Anxiety. And today we'll be talking about what is brain fog. Of note, there'll be a follow-up to this podcast that talks about what to do about brain fog. But to start, let's first talk about what is this phenomenon. We've been hearing a lot about this in the media, a lot of people talking about this in general during the pandemic. What is this? Well, to start, brain fog is not in the DSM-5, which is sort of the psychiatric Bible of mental health conditions. It's not in there as its own disorder, but it is in fact a symptom of a lot of different kinds of disorders, which we'll talk about in just a moment. When we're talking about brain fog, what we're referring to is problems with forgetfulness, problems with concentration, having a hard time with shifting between one task and another, and having that tip of the tongue phenomenon, which is, there's that word. What's that word? I used to know it. I can't think of it right now. These are all the kinds of experiences people might have that we are collectively calling brain fog. Why are we having it right now? Well, I think that a lot of the reason why many of us are having it right now is because we're doing way too much. We have multiple screens going at a time. We've got our computer and tablets and cell phone, and there's data coming to us at all times, and there's papers piling up on our desks and emails in the inbox and deadlines, and it's all too much. And for many of us during the pandemic, we have more to do than ever. And for many of us, we have fewer resources to support us than ever. And so it's not surprising to me that right now is a time when more and more of us are struggling with these symptoms of brain fog. Another example of what this looks like is, you walk into the living room and you find yourself saying, oh God, why did I come in here? What was I going to get? What was I going to do? This is the sort of thing that people are experiencing, and we're calling it brain fog. As I mentioned, these symptoms can actually be due to a number of different kinds of conditions. So anxiety disorders can cause problems with concentration or paying attention, as can depression. People who go through a trauma and who have post-traumatic stress disorder can also have symptoms of brain fog. People, though, who are under a lot of stress, regardless of whether they have those conditions, also can have a hard time with brain fog. People who are using substances, whether these are legal or not, whether you're under the influence of them or having hangover effects, it's not uncommon for people to talk about having a harder time paying attention or having a harder time shifting from one mental task to the next. Also, people struggling with sleep disorders report a lot of symptoms of brain fog. If you're having a hard time falling asleep at night, or you're waking up in the middle of the night, or waking up too early, these are all the features of insomnia. It's not uncommon for people to have a hard time with focus the next day. Also, people who are struggling with sleep apnea, which is a condition where people aren't getting enough oxygen while they sleep. And symptoms of that look like, snoring very loudly, loud enough that someone could hear you in another room, having people watch you stop breathing while you're sleeping. These are common sleep apnea symptoms. And when people are struggling with sleep apnea that's not treated, it can lead to problems with concentration and problems with brain fog. People who are struggling with brain fog are more likely to be absent at work and to have lower productivity ratings and problems making decisions. And why does it happen? Well, there are probably a number of reasons for a given person. In general, when this happens, and it's not due to something like, cognitive decline, age-related cognitive decline, or Alzheimer's disease, or things like that, when it's not due to those conditions, it can be instead due to having a bit of a system override issue in your brain, meaning there are too many things coming at you at once. You've got your emails and your IMs and your text messages and your calls, and there's too much to attend to at once And so not surprisingly, people are feeling like, oh my gosh, I just can't focus. When in reality, it might be kind of impossible for most people to focus under those circumstances. And it's almost like your brain gets overwhelmed and just can't process information as efficiently as it usually would. The prefrontal cortex of our brain is involved in decision making. It's involved in telling us not to do things that are harmful for us. And this part of our brain requires a lot of energy. And so if we're constantly having to stay focused, that's a lot of work on the part of our prefrontal cortex. So it's not surprising that sometimes that part of our brain just gets overworked and kind of shuts down. That doesn't necessarily mean that something is terribly wrong with your brain. And in the next podcast, we're going to talk about what you can do to manage brain fog so that it doesn't get in the way of your home life and your work life. So I hope you'll join us for that follow-up podcast. Thanks for joining today.